Are you ready for this meeting today?
Yes, sir.
November 10th, 2017, a special city council meeting. Clerk Treasurer, would you call the roll, please?
Councilperson Modesto?
Here.
Councilperson Clem?
Here.
Councilperson Williams?
Here.
Councilperson Cannon?
Here.
Councilperson Zilli?
Here.
Councilperson Lynch?
Here.
Councilperson Prisco?
Here. Colin, do you just want to check to make sure this is functioning correctly?
It is.
It is? Okay,
Yep.
good enough. The first line today is the 2018.
A little bit louder, please.
The first item today is the 2018 employee salary ordinance.
You want to do a pledge of allegiance before we start, or?
Yes.
We're not in California. There's a flag right there.
Go ahead, John.
Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, 2018 employee salary ordinance. Liz, you want to take that, please?
Salary, elected officials, isn't it?
Mr. Prisco, point of order. We suspended the rules on the first reading at our last meeting, if I recall, and then we voted on the salary ordinance, the employee salary ordinance, and it passed.
Correct, I'm sorry. It's the 2018, my fault, 2018 elected official salary ordinance.
Two different ordinances.
Yeah.
Good eye, John. Or Scott. Good eye.
Okay, the
Thanks,
second
Pat.
reading, I'll read it. An ordinance establishing the salaries of the elected city officials of the city of Portage, Porter County, Indiana for the year 2018, be it and is hereby ordained by the Common Council of the City of Portage, Porter County, Indiana. Ordinance 16-14 is hereby repealed in its entirety. Section 2, that from the first pay date in January 2018 through the last pay date in December of 2018, the salary and pay schedule for the elected officers of the city of Portage, Porter County, Indiana will be fixed as follows. Position: the mayor, office of the mayor, the annual maximum would be $83,466.23. The clerk treasurer's annual, on the city side, he will be compensated $65,886.82 for an annual maximum. Utility pay for the clerk treasurer would be $10,000 for an annual maximum. Total paid by the city would be $75,886.82 for the clerk treasurer. The common council, city side will be contributing $16,500 to the city council members. Utility side would be contributing $5,000. Excuse me, for a total salary from the city would be, for the city council would be $21,500. Let the record show that this ordinance was read in its entirety. Make a motion to adopt.
Second.
Okay, anybody want to talk, discuss? It's open.
I would,
Good.
if possible. Couple questions. The city side of the salary ordinance and the utility side, those are separate entities paying separate amounts? That's how it was read. So is the city paying the total amount, or does the utility pay part of it and the city pay part of it?
The city.
City does all of it?
Yeah, the city, all of it.
One salary.
That's not how it was read, so I just put that in the record. And so I want to refer to two ordinances we passed back in February when we took over the Utility Service Board. I'll read some of it here for you. Section 82-5, salaries of board members shall hereby be amended to read the following. The members of the board shall not receive any additional compensation for service on the board. That's one of the ordinances we passed. Second ordinance says the clerk treasurer shall serve as the treasurer of the Utility Service Board without additional compensation. He shall deposit money weekly, blah, 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 blah. So if we pass this, that would be in conflict of two ordinances we already passed.
Section 3 of this ordinance says any ordinance or provision of any ordinance of the city of Portage in conflict is hereby repealed. We do that in every ordinance we pass.
So then these two ordinances that we passed in 17 or in February would be null and void completely.
No, it says any ordinance or provision of any ordinance of the city of Portage, of the municipal code.
Okay. Wanted that for the record. Also like to put in a record, if I could too, couple comments made by our chairman of the board in the Times on February 8th. He says this ordinance, which I just referenced to, would also delete the salary for any other board chairperson going forward. Let's keep the money, let's give the money to the citizens, he says here. It's in the Times, you can look it up if you like. He also said that the pay, which was $30,000 going to the tax, which was going to the mayor at the time, would go back to the taxpayers. Also in the Times on February 7th. So now we're gonna renege on those three statements apparently.
John, you voted for an employee or an elected official salary ordinance after we took over the board that gave the mayor that $30,000.
That's correct.
So we didn't save anything.
You voted for it too.
That's correct, it did. But that's not what the chairman of the city council said. He said the pay, which is $30,000, will go back to the taxpayers. Now we're gonna take $45,000 from the taxpayers.
No.
Just wanted to make that part of the record.
5 times 7 is 35. Chris has 10.
That's 45.
When we were paying,
Two
we were
different things.
That's $45,000.
We were
no matter how
paying,
you
the
do it.
USB was paying $49,000, not to mention all the extra expenses the mayor racked up as far as take-home vehicles, leased take-home vehicles that we have sent back, totaling
Excuse me, I
$120,000.
had the floor.
Go ahead, go ahead.
You know what?
Chairman
No,
gave me.
no, just
Chairman
go
gave me the
ahead.
floor. And interruptions down there, interruptions down here. So, also in 13, we started off with a $12,000 a year salary. Next year, we give ourselves a raise of $1,410. Right after that, we amended that and gave ourselves an additional raise, moving ourselves to $14,616. Last year, we give ourselves a raise up to $16,500. Now we're going to go to $21,500.
If I may, Mr. Cannon,
I mean, we just keep getting
It's-
raises after raises, and some,
I'd like to,
including some in this room, did not get a raise this year. But we're going to go ahead and give ourselves a raise. I just wanted to make that for the record, and then I'm done, sir.
point well taken, I'd like to say this is not a raise. This $5,000 is additional compensation for additional responsibilities taken on and handling all the tasks, all the activities that are associated with the Utility Service Board. So it is not a raise. It's additional compensation for these additional responsibilities.
Let me, you
You
done?
use compensation, additional, or raise, it's still the same thing. You're getting more money for
No
those jobs
raises when you do the
that you
same
got elected
job.
to do. That's the job that you
Okay, someone's
are
got the
supposed to be
floor,
doing.
John.
So- Well, he
Scott
stopped.
had the floor.
He stopped.
Well, does that mean you can jump
Wow.
right in? You cut me off.
Let me just discuss a couple of
Right.
these things. Are you done, Scott?
I am done.
First of all, it's important to know that what Scott said is, I really don't consider this a raise for us. It's part of the job that we're doing. The city council back in March took over the Utility Service Board. The annual budget for the Utility Service Board is $18 million a year. We had taken over that board because of the actions that the mayor was causing to the public, okay? When you look at the past salaries, okay, the mayor made $30,000. The former USB board made $16.2 thousand for a total of $46.2 thousand. This year alone, this board has taken away $13.5 thousand by ridding the old board. We're looking at $35,000 amongst this board, and believe me, this board's a working board. I have worked with Don, I have worked with Dave hand in hand. Some of the comments made to me by them is that they have seen more of us in the last 10 months or 8 months since this board has taken effect than they've seen of the previous mayors in 20 years. Another reason why this board is doing the things that we're doing, it takes work. And this board up here has worked very diligently in making things happen. We have gotten rid of a lease this week, a $70,000 Tahoe. We ridded 2 vehicles, Expeditions at $55,000 apiece, for a total debt that would have cost us $142,000. That's done. The average car for Troy and for Ted's guys are $32,000 a year. We are not sending legal bills out to people in our defense because of the problems that we have with the federal government. A lot of those bills, and I'll say it again, I feel were padded. We have not written checks for $93,000. This board has been very, very vigilant in the way we do business. I would never myself or expect anybody on this board to send checks for a law firm for $93,000, okay, for $93,000 for their personal problems without contacting the board prior. The previous board chairman sent out a $19,000 bill for a 3-page legal opinion back in February when this board was taking over in March. This board has not taken any trips to Europe, to Washington, D.C. on the taxpayers' dollars. We do not have a charge card where we use it wherever we feel that it's necessary. The list goes on and on and on. Once again, I don't consider this a raise. I consider this work that this board has worked at very diligently, and I'm very proud of everybody sitting up here. Anybody else want to speak? Go ahead.
I just want to say also, as the budget liaison for the USB, we recently refinanced a bond, saving $1 million by reducing the debt on that bond. And we are working really hard. The Baker-Daniels bill, we have refused to pay. We did not authorize that bill, but the previous board did. But we felt that it was inappropriate to charge the USB that money, and we are refusing to pay that bill. So we are literally saving the taxpayers thousands of dollars by going through these line items one by one and looking at where we can save money. $5,000 may sound like a lot, but we have done a lot of work. I can tell you that we are meeting constantly. The budget committee alone meets sometimes 3 times a month, not to come our regular meetings. So I think we're working hard to get the USB in line, and I'm very proud of the work that we have done.
Thank you.
Clerk Treasurer Stidham, do you want to?
Just, I guess, a couple clarifying from a technical standpoint. I think there was a couple code references to ordinances from passed earlier in the year. It's important to note, and I think it's a good clarifying question that Councilperson Cannon asked. It's just a good thing to kind of clarify for everyone. This proposed salary for the elected officials is going to be one salary. It's one check from the city. It does identify, obviously, a city portion and a utility portion, I think, because it's good to keep in mind for everyone that the utility is a separate entity. It's an $18 million organization, and it has a board of directors and a CFO like any organization would. The reason it specifically states in those ordinances cited by Councilperson Cannon that there wouldn't be a salary for the utility board members, the utility board chairman, is because, as we discussed way back in February, it was of the opinion at that time that having 2 salaries, 2 separate checks was illegal. That need to be one check. So we're simply saying that the utility is not going to cut a check, just the city is. So that's a process type argument or issue more than anything else. The only other thing I'll say, just to kind of reiterate, is this is an $18 million organization that flows through the utility, operates the sanitary sewer, the stormwater, and related items. The board, to have a board to run that such an organization and do the things that this board has done over the past 8 or 9 months. I guess recall also that at the time of the takeover, this board had set a 6-month review window on whether or not it was necessary to maintain control in 6 months. And it's obviously been shown to be necessary to maintain control because of all of the issues Councilperson Prisco has identified that had to be corrected and continue to have to be corrected. And now that it's decided that that's an ongoing issue, it makes sense to recognize that.
Just one thing I'd like to add what Sue had mentioned. These members meet constantly. The past board, I was on that for a year. There was never a budget committee. There was never a drainage committee. There were never liaisons to anything, nothing. Everything, and I'm going to go on record, was a power play. The mayor had full control of the board. I could say this thing, looking at everybody down here, no one does that. Everyone talks, we talk things out, we look at the right thing to do. It's not myself or the next chairman sitting up here that's gonna make all the calls because I'm able to get their votes. End of subject. I'm done talking about it.
Can I reiterate one
Go
thing?
ahead.
If you look at the whole scope of what the board is now compared to what it was before, again, under Mark Aprisco's leadership as the chairman and the leadership of the elected officials up here, we have formed various committees. Just like on the city side, we have the same, almost the exact same committees. And for $5,000 compensation for doing, basically, we're doing double the work that we do on the city side right now to try to get this board back in shape and moving forward and save the taxpayers some money. Again, like Sue said, the budget committee, I'm on the budget, I chair the budget for the city and sit on the budget committee for the USB. And we've met probably 10 times this year for the city, on the city side, and at least 3 times on the USB side in the last month. And we're just trying to get our finances together and to try to do what's right for the city of Portage and move forward. And
I'd like to ask, go ahead, Sue.
I just wanted to thank Chris too, because he's been awesome at giving us numbers. He constantly updates those numbers for us. And he is actually saving money too, because he has moved the people from the utility across the street to the city hall, and they are overseen by the clerk treasurer's office now. And so we're saving money. Ultimately, that whole building will be closed out. That's a huge savings. I just don't think people that don't work on this every day realize the amount of money we are saving by doing that. Another thing I want to say about the project committee, Pat and Scott, they're working so hard on these projects, and they call us and say,
Liz
And
too.
Liz too, come out and look at these projects. We have moved projects, the Arrow Street one on Lenberg Road that was sitting there with an orange fence around it for over a year. Finally, Scott worked with NIPSCO and got them to get out there and finish their job, so those people weren't sitting there with that ginormous hole in front of their driveways. Projects are getting done, they're moving forward. We're going out there and actually physically seeing these projects getting done. So again, I'm very proud of every group of liaisons for this board because we are making things happen.
Can I say
Great job,
Can I say
guys.
one thing? Councilman Cannon, what committee do you sit on for the USB currently?
Drainage.
And I think every one of us here sit on at least two of the committees, so. And mine's a very working committee that I sit on. One of them is the project bond committee and also the budget committee. And we've done a lot of work, a lot of meetings, a lot of footwork too, going out and looking at the different projects. And I think $500 is pretty cheap to compensate us for the work we're doing right now in the USB and
I think it's 5,000.
It's 5,000.
oh, 5,000.
I wish it was 500.
Can I have the floor, please?
Go ahead.
I'd like to make something really clear here. Cannon has went to social media and has put out there that we have turned down first responders' pay raises. That is so fake news. We have got a very, very fair contracts put in place for our first responders. This isn't about our first responders. This is about the salaries that the mayor has put out there that is unfair to all the other employees of the city. It's displayed favoritism over the years. He's been very generous to some and very selfish to others. And it's unfair. I am about fairness to all of our employees. Bottom line. And I will protect the very least paid person as much as I will the very top paid salaried person. They will be treated equally by myself, and I hope all the other members up here as well. And that's exactly what we have done on the city side with the mayor's salary ordinance. And as everyone has spoke up here, every one of us on this board have worked very hard in getting projects done that we've walked into that were a very big mess. And I'm not going into detail of what was the messes were and why and what contractors, but they're getting wrapped up and we're gonna move forward, and there will be stipulations that we have approved with the new contracts coming up, that we're gonna have a little bit more control of these projects and not the contractor, of having free will of come to going as they please. And the resident paying the consequences for it. That's unfair, and we have made those adjustments, and they will be recognized as taxpayers, and the projects will be done efficiently and properly, no cutting corners. So our first responders, back to our point here, that cannons going to social media, spreading fake news to everyone. Our first responders are very well taken care of. We respect them very highly. And they're very equipped with very professional equipment to do their jobs. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to move the previous question.
A second.
Since that was mentioned and all that, can I?
We could do that under old business, or when we get to that point. He just called.
Motion and a second, so it would take a 2/3 majority to do this.
Call the roll.
Councilperson Modesto?
Yes.
Councilperson Clem?
Yes.
Councilperson Williams?
Yes.
Councilperson Gannon?
No.
Councilperson Prisco?
Yes.
Councilperson Zilli?
Yes.
Councilperson Lynch?
Yes.
So the,
Vote on the question, which was to approve this.
If I could.
Wait, one second. What did you say, Mr. Elwood?
Debate has ended.
Okay.
You now, so that's been a vote on to end debate.
So now you make a motion.
Majority, so now there needs to be.
Was there a motion?
Move to deny.
there's already a motion on the
There's been motion
floor,
approved.
so we just need to call a vote on that motion. It's a motion by Councilperson Modesto, seconded by Councilperson Williams on a motion to adopt.
Call the roll, Chief Financial Secretary.
Councilperson Clem?
Yes.
Councilperson Williams?
Yes.
Councilperson Cannon?
No.
Councilperson Prisco?
Yes.
Councilperson Zilli?
Yes.
Councilperson Lynch?
Yes.
Councilperson Modesto?
Yes.
Okay, second ordinance for today, the impervious surface stormwater fees. Scott Williams, will you please read that by title only?
An ordinance of the city of Portage, Porter County, Indiana, amending stormwater utility fees and policies for the city of Portage, Indiana. Let the record reflect that this ordinance has been read in its entirety.
Second.
Discussion?
He didn't make a motion yet.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I thought you would.
Second.
Discussion?
If I could, sir, again.
Go ahead. Well, it would be, okay, go ahead.
You can start with
No,
Liz down there.
well, she made the motion, but go ahead.
So, at this late hour, at 9:36, finally received the file I've asked for 7 days on what the current bill would be, or what currently a nonprofit is paying compared to what they will pay in 2018. I'd like to ask a couple questions of who controls the billing of our nonprofits and businesses and home residents. Will we send a letter to, because this is gonna pass, but will we send a letter stating what they currently pay and what they will pay starting January 1? And when will those letters go out, and what's the cost of mailing those?
It's up to this board if you'd like to do that.
Okay.
The previous this was discussed at last month's meeting. It was decided at that meeting that the large ratepayers, the ones with the at the upper end of the scale, would be notified individually. We didn't discuss that no one had mentioned at that time doing it for all ratepayers, but we can certainly do it. It's up to this board to do so.
Well, we wouldn't have to for residential.
Sorry, for all ratepayers
commercial.
affected by this
Correct.
ordinance.
Correct. Okay. And do we know who those, prior to 9:36 today, apparently we didn't have a file showing what the nonprofits pay currently. So it took at least 7 days to get that information. You'd think it would take 7 hours. We do not have a file in our system that shows all this stuff, so I would have to go and ask the YMCA treasurer what they pay everyone? Is that how we acquired this information that we got at this late hour?
No, we got it from, I think in the email I sent to you,
Yeah.
it said Sherry and Carl had worked on it.
Okay,
And I think the file has 100 and some
see it.
some odd folks on there.
see it.
I'm not making excuses other than to say that they have a lot of duties already and they address this as soon as they possibly could.
So we don't have a file where you can just push a button and print that out? Prior to, I mean, we had a file showing what they were going to pay.
Sorry.
We had a file showing what they were going to pay, but we don't have a file that we can just push a button and say what they're paying now?
We do not, our billing system does not classify churches. It does not classify restaurants. It classifies residents and non-residents. That's all it classifies them as. So if we're gonna, so to answer your question, no. Can we push a button and say, show me all nonprofits and what they currently pay? No, we can't. We gotta go and do it individually. We don't code them by their nonprofit status. We don't code them by any other type of use other than to say they're either residential or non-residential.
I'd like to ask to have that going forward, that we would have that file now that we have it. We have it now, I mean, all we do is just load that.
Yeah, I think you make a great point.
I mean, our software, I would think, would be pretty up to date. This is almost 2018. We're not still in the 50s where we do everything on a piece of paper and write it down on columns. I mean, like I had to this morning to assimilate this huge file received at 9:36, just 25 minutes before a meeting or something.
John, can I ask a
Oh,
question?
go ahead, Scott, or go ahead.
Well,
Colin.
how old is our billing system?
Well, so let me just, it's a great question. It's a great issue. Again, I don't want to sound like a broken record. We're 8 months into this. We have made an enormous number of changes on the utility side already since this board took over. We are in the middle of a major move, which is transferring the billing office from across the street and incorporating it into the clerk treasurer's office. We are eliminating the duplicating of payroll functions, so it'll be a single payroll. We are next going to do that with claims, vendor payments. We will be looking at the billing software, absolutely. It's a great question. There's only so much we can do and only so quickly. This board has been moving at lightning speed and there's more to do and we'll be getting there. Number one. Number two, the great thing of the Wessler report, if nothing else, the Wessler report, by the way, is the study that created this impervious surface rate chart. The great thing about it is it served almost as an audit of our current stormwater billing and identified scores of billing errors for our current stormwater users. So we've been able to get all of those corrected. That's been a wonderful thing because it creates a more fair system. Right now, because we've had billing errors, some ratepayers are paying more than they should and others are paying less than they should. In fact, we found some that weren't being billed at all. So the Wessler study has served as an audit to correct all those errors. It's been outstanding. Going forward, we have now much more confidence in our data than we did prior.
What did we pay those folks?
$80,000.
Well worth it.
Go ahead, John.
So something else was awful confusing to me. On October 3rd, when we first started talking about this, back besides in Wessler when we did they got the report on February 24th. October 3rd, we had a resolution that we passed out of the USB. There was no discount mentioned for nonprofits, correct?
Correct.
And then we talked about it. And then on November 2nd, we received in our Dropbox a 50% discount for nonprofits. How did we come to the determination, and who on the board approved the 50% to be put in the ordinance? I mean, where did we get 50% discount? How did we just pull that out of the sky, or where'd that come from?
So you're correct. In October, we discussed this. The initial report did not have a discount. Did not have a discount for anyone. Didn't have education credits because it was the initial report. At that meeting, there was a lengthy discussion about the importance of mitigating the impact on our schools and nonprofits, churches, other entities. And so the charge at that time was to make that happen. Some of us spent that time period working on that. Initially, it came out at 50%. Again, I guess we'll blame the antiquated software or whatever. We had to then take time to review that against the existing users and see if that.
But I thought we didn't have the information
We spot checked it, John, I didn't, did I check all 140 or however many is in that file? No.
It's the
but
same
did
thing I told you,
did I pick a
basically, to go out
handful?
and pick a couple
Yeah, I
parcels
sure
and try to
did.
figure it out on your own.
That's,
So-
that's just
Calculation.
demeaning to say that to a city councilman.
It's not
To go out
demeaning,
and
it's
measure
true.
someone's
I mean,
property, Mark, that's just silly.
Why? You kept asking them the question 100
Because we
times.
have that, we should have that information. That's not something for a city councilman or a USB member to do is go
These
out and
guys have
measure
worked
something.
their butts off
I don't have a
for
tape measure, you know, that goes 150 yards and all this kind of jazz,
Estimate it.
like these Westler folks do.
Estimate.
So the,
Mark,
Or,
it's just-
or else you could contact
know
Westler.
that.
We're at a
You
public
know
meeting,
that
come on, come on.
Westler, just as
I
well
tried
as the
to.
clerk treasurer.
You know, you can contact a lot of people also,
So how
but
the
you
50%
neglect to contact people to get your own answers.
That's not true.
It is true.
50%,
It is
so
true.
how do we get the 50%
So-
discount?
Go
come
ahead,
about?
Chris.
so
Like,
the, so the initial suggestion was 50, because that, thought that might get it done.
And who suggested that?
I suggested it, and then I suggested 66%, I suggested it Tuesday night that this board adopt a 66% discount. And they were on their way, I think, to doing so, but we, you know,
What did,
we're here
where
tonight.
did 66% come and not 65 or 70 or?
I guess he sort of had
58
a
or-
soft
You,
heart.
you gotta pick a
possibly.
number at some point, you know, yes, I could have been 65, could have been
75.
57.3, could have been, yeah, sure.
Still can be.
Yeah, if we
Correct.
wanna change it.
That's correct, that's,
But yes, to a point, you know, the key on all of this, John, and I think at some point you had mentioned, well, why don't we just exempt these folks? Which is great, I'd love to do it. I'll tell you, in all the discussions I've had with them, not a single one asked for it. And they all told me that they believe in paying their fair share. The problem is, we have to draft an ordinance and pass an ordinance that will withhold criticism and possible legal challenge, because we're a utility.
Right.
And so we've been trying to do this as delicately as possible, to craft an ordinance that takes care of those organizations that are important to us, but not create such a situation where we're gonna have the Port of Indiana or other entities coming after us to say, well, you gave them a discount, we're also tax exempt, where's our discount? So we have a very fine line to kind of tread on trying to accomplish all of this without creating too much controversy. So, yeah, did we pick out 66, or did I suggest 66%? Because, you know, I think it works, yeah. Could it be 100%? Absolutely. But I think the closer you get to 100%, the more you open this ordinance up to later legal challenge.
we also had in our resolution, and just trying to understand some of this, couldn't ask on the other night, it was given to us, but. So in our resolution, we went up to areas over 4 million square foot. I'm sorry, that was in an ordinance, but the resolution said that any area over 1 million square foot was 300 yeah, correct, thank you, Colin. And then in the last document received, it went from 300 to 190 ERUs. And then to the last document I received, it went back to 200. So where's all these? Why is this change from 300, 190, then down to 200 for 1 million square foot? So our businesses are kind of wondering, do I have 4 million square foot? Do I have 1 million square foot? And where do I stand here?
And it's important to note that
Doesn't everybody else on the board kind of think, oh, that's kind of fishy? Or what?
The question was answered at the last council meeting.
Okay, well maybe I didn't hear that.
There was an original report that suggested what the rate should be for various square footage. There was an amendment to that report for the November meeting. That's what we're looking at.
That's November 2nd. It was
Yes,
put in our,
looking right at it.
it was put in our Dropbox on November 2nd, and then November 7th, when we received the 66% discount document, it went back to 200.
But the other ranges changed as well.
But
The square footage range changed. You can't, an ERU is an equivalent residential unit. If a square footage range changes, the ERU is going to change. 1 million square feet, 4 million square feet have different ERUs.
yeah, but the
what
documents.
are you suggesting, though, I guess, John?
Well, I just don't, how do we go from 1 million square foot being 300 ERUs in one document, and then it goes to 190 in the next document, 5 days later, it goes to 200? What happens, how's all that change in a month?
Let me just clarify, the
what's-
formula didn't change, all that changed was the cap, on where we set the cap, and
Originally it was 1 million square feet, right?
the ultimate recommendation came from our engineer, who, again, during the month of October, while studying the ordinance, had a chance to review who was affected by this cap, and identified that the cap probably was not well placed and needed to be adjusted. It was upon his recommendation that the ordinance was modified to
Same folks
to
would get
adjust it.
$80,000 to do their study.
What's that?
Same.
No, our engineer.
John Hanna. Okay.
Correct.
So, Chris,
Go ahead.
originally, the report, the recommendation, if I remember correctly, I'm trying to find it here.
It was a resolution.
A million square feet at higher. Was
cap,
the
sure.
cap.
Yeah.
Now it's 4 million. So if you're a business that has 1 million square feet, you would have been paying the same as a business that had 4 million.
Which was exactly Mr. Hannon's
That's
point and
completely
his,
unfair to the business that has
his
1 million square feet. If you're US Steel or you're Meyer, if one of you has 3 million more square feet of impervious surface, you would have been paying the same. That's not fair.
Don't disagree with any of that, but why did it change the document in 5 days? The same time we put the 66% in, why wasn't all this put in originally in the resolution and thought through by Westler and by us, that we paid the $80,000 to Westler to do, and then we had to get our own engineer to look this document over. In 5 days he changed it? Because in October it was one, and on November 2nd it was one, and on November 7th it was a different one.
I guess I don't understand the concern, whether it was changed in 5 days, or it got changed because it needed to be changed. That's what's important.
Who determined that the ERUs should change?
The ERU didn't change.
It was a recommendation to this board. This board doesn't have to adopt it.
Exactly, there we go, it was a recommendation of the board.
In 5 days, don't you think that's kind of?
We discussed it.
Did you vote on that?
We didn't discuss that. I didn't vote on
It
that.
was a recommendation of the USB board.
Guys,
The USB board gave the recommendation.
we did a resolution, that's right. Different document than this document.
And
then
then our
different
at our
document than this
USB, at our
document.
USB meeting, we said, you brought it up that you would like to see the nonprofits get a
Correct.
bigger discount, so we all agreed.
Never
We
said
asked
anything
them to
about-
look into it, and we asked John Hannon, he was
No.
sitting up front in the front
I
row
said
at
to
the
exempt them.
meeting.
I said to exempt them, so.
Well, we asked him to look into it, and that's what he came up with. What else, is there anything else that you,
Because when we get
Don't
something in the
understand?
Dropbox on November 2nd that says 50% discount, and we have a different chart on ERUs, and then 5 days later, we have a different document given to us 10 minutes before the meeting, that seemed, I know what our procedure is, that we get to just, who gets to just make those determinations and changes without going to the board? The USB, it should have went back to the USB board before it went to the council. To change
Attorney,
these documents.
it did go
Ken,
back
do
to
you
the
wanna expound
USB.
on this? Let's have my
I just wanna know the procedure.
Well, you've got,
Ken's gonna guide you through it.
you've got consultants, Westler, you've got Mr. Sender, Carl Sender. You've got our own staff working on it. I sat in meetings with, Mr. Stidham and John Hannon and Carl Sender talking about the not-for-profits, talking about the 1 million square foot so there's been lots of people working on this. At the end of the day, the USB has to approve a resolution and the council has to approve an ordinance if you wanna implement this. So, I'm not as concerned as the number of days it takes or when you have the information. You guys have to make a decision today.
Mr. Chairman,
I think it's an
Mr.
effort to fine tune a process that's a new process, John, and every time it's fine tuned, it's better. So I don't understand your concern when we're trying to make something better, even though it's,
It may not be better to a
every time
business.
somebody has eyes on it, they try to
It may
make
not
it
be
better and fairer.
It's not beneficial to the business.
But it is better to the business.
It is.
Yeah,
If someone with 1
you
million
have
is
a million
paying
square feet
less
and
than
one has
somebody
4
4 million,
million,
so raising
you were
the
paying
cap
the same.
absolutely benefited the business.
Yeah,
It would,
absolutely.
it would be if it stayed at 190, and then we change it 5 days later to 200.
That's a calculation.
That's a calculation,
By
that's
changing
math.
the square footage, it changes the ERU.
You know what, hey, Mr. Cannon.
We're
trying to make-
Hold
I'm not
on, stop,
finished. I'm not
Mr.
finished
Cannon,
yet.
I would ask that you work with Mr. Stidham and he could explain everything to you, okay? Somewhere today if you have an opportunity.
I'd like
Do we
to,
have a
I'd like to
motion
make one more, like, make one more
We have a
statement,
motion on
please.
the floor.
Please.
One more, go ahead.
In the document I received today at 9:36, the current rate for the American Legion is $54.41. On the spreadsheet I received by month, is $54.41. It'll go to $240 going forward. The VFW, $23.50 currently, will go to $60. Boys and Girls Club goes from $217.50 to $240. Family, just picking a random church out like Mr. Stidham did, Family Church, $23.50 goes to $480. Real Life Church goes from $126.15 to $480. St. Pete, I think my mother and Mrs. Lynch goes to that church. $23.50 they currently pay will go to $120. So we're gonna sit here and say that they got a discount. I had Councilman Zilli tell me, they're all gonna go down. Do you think anybody would vote for one that would allow them to go up? He told me that just last night. I can read you the text message thread. I just gave you 6 that show they go up. I mean, that's just
I'm
that.
laughing at Sushi,
Yeah,
I thought you said threat. Not
No,
threat.
thread. No.
I thought he said threat too.
No, I apologize if I did.
Thanks, Rhonda.
Yeah, Colin knows better. So,
I know not to text with you anymore.
well, you're the one that said they wouldn't go up. And that you would never vote for it if they did go up. Well, I just gave you 6 instances that said that they will go up. Guys, you're just, the whole thing is fuzzy and fishy. We're using off numbers that we didn't have to give a discount, and then it went up.
We're using engineering numbers from a company that we paid a lot of money to
No, the
do.
current rate.
Mark, can I have the floor
Current
for a minute? Can I have the floor?
And then I ask you what your current
John-
rate is, and you haven't supplied it to me.
Okay, John, I have the floor. It's my
I'm gonna
turn.
have you come out there and do the calculations with
No,
me.
I wanna know what you currently
Go
pay.
ahead, Liz, real quick.
Thank you,
Go ahead.
thank
Go
you.
ahead.
I think we all agree, this study was done by the past mayor. This is what he wanted to do, and we're just following through with it. There was no
He's a current mayor, but, right.
Or the past chairman of the.
past chairman of the board.
Of the USB.
He started this.
And he was wrong
Study.
too.
Well, there was no implications or any inkling that they even wanted to give a discount to the nonprofits. And all this study does is it makes it more fair for businesses to pay their fair share for the water runoff. We're mandated by, I wish Dave Littleton was here, by I think it's 2020 to get our MS4 under control. And this is what this money is gonna do. It's gonna get our MS4 under control. If we don't get it under control, we're gonna start getting fined daily.
You betcha.
And we didn't wanna pass on the cost to the residents because we feel they're already paying their fair share.
MS4 doesn't require
Is
us to
it
raise
fair,
rates.
is it fair for a business that generates $1 million a year?
MS4
to
doesn't
pay-
require us to raise rates. You're
John, I
making up
have the
stuff.
floor.
You're making up stuff.
I have the floor. No, I'm not making up anything. If you would have sat on some of these meetings, you would know. It's just not fair for the residents to take the bulk of the businesses that have the impervious surfaces throughout the whole city. And I'm not gonna increase the rates for my residents for a business to pay the same rate that my residents are paying.
Your residents.
Can I just make one final comment? We have a city of close to 40,000 plus or whatever. We have to look at projects. You know, we always discuss monies and projects. We hired an engineering firm that did this. This was talked about for the past year and a half. It's very important that this group moves ahead and that we vote for this type of project. Because if you don't vote for this type of a ordinance, what you're gonna end up doing is you're gonna end up breaking down the whole system for our group, for the utilities. End of subject.
So, can I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
Let's vote on this today, come back in December with any adjustments that need to be made for churches and nonprofits to where they will not pay any more than they're currently paying now.
I don't agree with that. I'm sorry.
Well, let's call for the vote. We'll discuss that. We'll
I've
discuss
had
it.
residents call me up and say they don't want us to give any nonprofit organizations a discount or churches because they have a lot more money than some of our retirees.
The nonprofits pay gas bills, correct? They pay gas and electric, don't they?
Yeah,
Do they pay a water bill, or is that,
Do they get
or is
a
that
reduced
off?
rate?
No, I mean, they pay NIPSCO.
They don't get a
They pay
reduced rate.
water bills. I mean, we're trying to be as fair as we can. I think the clerk treasurer, when I talked to him, he knew of 2 or 3 or a few of these
There are a
that were
couple.
in bad situations.
Yes.
And he let me know, Mark, we need to do something with that. And what Colin brought up, I don't have a problem with.
And
But
there's
taking
language
it
in the
down to
ordinance
0
about
is not the answer. We need to be fair to
So,
everybody.
what's
That's right.
what is the specific language in the ordinance? Do you
There's an appeal process that we can use to make adjustments
so
to
we're
things
fine.
that are erroneous.
And some of these numbers that John cited have been caused by them being placed in the wrong category anyways, which is what Wessler discovered as well. So I mean, we've discussed some of these outliers and they just were originally placed in the wrong position.
For example, your
Liability.
church, Ken, 126, they currently pay, they'll go to $1,140 a month. nativity. 126.15, they'll go to $1,140. I mean, well, I'm just going by what the report that the clerk treasurer supplied to me.
Go to $11.40 a month, where are you getting that from?
Yeah.
Kenny, if that's the case, you better cough up some more money when they come through there. It's not even his church, you're gonna join it now?
You'll have to explain.
That's my
you'll have to
church.
explain the
Mr. Chairman,
document.
I'd like to move the previous question.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, call the roll.
Sorry, let me get caught up here. So this one will start, Councilperson Williams?
Yes.
Councilperson Cannon?
No.
Councilperson Prisco?
Yes.
Councilperson Zilli?
Yes.
Councilperson Lynch?
Yes.
Councilperson Modesto?
Yes.
Councilperson Clem?
Yes.
Make a motion to approve.
There's already,
Yes, it is, second reading.
it's a motion by Liz to adopt, seconded by Councilperson Williams. Ready to-
Vote on it.
You ready for the roll?
You vote on
Yeah.
Sorry,
So
okay.
the-
Councilperson Cannon?
No.
Councilperson Prisco?
Yes.
Councilperson Zilli?
Yes.
Councilperson Lynch?
Yes.
Councilperson Modesto?
Yes.
Councilperson Clem?
Yes.
Councilperson Wood?
it. Yes.
Anybody on the board have anything to say on the city council?
I'm sorry if I can.
Go ahead. Yeah.
During, not to beat a dead horse, we had a lot of conversation about salaries today, and some inequities. And in part of that conversation and reviewing all the different salaries, I think there's been a lot of questions going back and forth on clerks, how much clerks are getting across the city, how much even assistant department heads are getting across the city, how much raises have been over the past 2 or 3 years, and discrepancies in those raises. Might it be a good idea for perhaps the budget committee to study this issue for the next month or two? There's nothing that precludes the city council from adjusting salaries later next year if it so chooses, I suppose, with the mayor's concurrence. But it seems to me there is some inequities going on across the city in terms of how salaries are being set and how raises were previously given out. And if some of that might need to be corrected. So it might be something worth studying if the budget committee could perhaps study that, obviously in cooperation with the mayor's office, and figure out what the root of that is and how to best solve that.
Can I say something as a budget chair? I have tried to work with the mayor on a number of these inequities. I don't think it's fair that some of our clerks in our police department, when we as a committee or as elected officials voted to give a 5% increase across the board last year, after looking at some of these figures, some of our clerks, I think it was 4 of them, got a 2.5% raise only. There's some other people throughout the fire department that got a 1.5% raise. Some got 3.5%. Some of the police department didn't get their raises. Some got higher. Some got 30. Some of them got
6%.
6%. Some of them got 13 and 20%. So I do agree with you. I tried to work with the mayor on some of these, and he didn't want to budge on them. So the mayor sets the salaries. So unless he's willing to sit down and talk and bring some of these salaries into line where they should be, I think it's a moot issue. But I will reach out to him as a budget chair and try to go over some of these with him again.
And I think it's just important to get a snapshot obviously, I'm not gonna speak for the mayor's office and he'll speak for himself, but I do think it's important whether that office cooperates or not, just to get an understanding on what is the current clerk situation, even not just clerks, but frankly, all of them, because I'm seeing assistant department head raises that ranged from 0.5% to 6% in the past year. And maybe there's very good reason, I don't know, but I think I've been hearing from employees over the past couple of days, because this has been a discussion topic, and that the question has been presented to me, I'm sure it's come up to others. Why are there differences? What can we do going forward? Maybe obviously we can't solve it without the mayor's cooperation, but at least we can have an idea of why and what our suggestion is to remedy that.
And I concur, and I'm sure the committee would be willing to look at that.
Absolutely.
To close any gaps, to identify any inequities, and to make some recommendations. So, yeah, I hear what you're saying, Chris, and I think Liz is agreed.
Like I said, I have reached out to the mayor and to no avail. He's given me reasons that I didn't think were adequate, and I brought it back to the budget committee, and I would like to work with the mayor on some of these, and like I said, I'm looking at the figures now. One person got a 1.5% raise compared to the highest one on here got a 46% raise last year.
And maybe it's, Liz, maybe it's the process. Maybe that's what Chris is saying more than just, excuse me, Colin. Maybe it is the process, and maybe we need to look at identifying and establishing, the process for merit increases, raises, whatever you want to call it. So maybe there's some recommendations that we can make as a committee.
Can I say something? I'm on the budget committee as well from the city side, and I've been asking for this for 2 years, that the mayor's been out of hand on how he handles his mayor's salary ordinance. That we were gonna run into this issue. The heads are running away with their salaries, and all the soldiers and the workers are getting left behind in the dust. And that's exactly what's presented here today. I'm looking at these percentages of raises, and it's very disturbing that certain individuals are held with a very generous raise and others that get zero. I got one here, it's under 1%. And there's an individual that's got up to a 46.56% raise in 1 year. And then a 41.2. Numerous 5%, numerous of them. It's just, and then again, all the way down to less than 1% raise is pretty humiliating to our workforce in the city. We need to correct this, and that's just what we're gonna do. That's where my vote's gonna lie. Everyone's gonna be treated fair. As long as my vote is, I'm about fairness, and I will stand on that to the day I die. And I've been working on this for 2 years with the budget committee for the mayor to recognize this, and he chooses not to. So now we have to do it ourselves.
Again, I can't reiterate enough that the mayor's gotta be willing to work with us to bring these salaries up to where they should be.
Thanks.
For the ones that haven't gotten the raise, that they should have gotten over the years. And, I mean, you can't give a flat raise to a fire clerk compared to a police clerk because of the different responsibilities. And I think, again, I will reach out to the mayor and try to sit down and talk to him, and the budget committee will reach out to him and have a meeting with him and try to rectify some of these.
Let me just make one last comment then. Chris, I just want to say thank you with your numbers. I mean, the last couple of days, you've crunched some numbers that are shocking when you look at them. Some of the comments made by Councilman Clem today, okay, and by Liz, they're astounding when you look at the differences when the mayor first came in office in 2012 to where we're currently at. When you look at the upper chiefs, you look at the heads for units, and you go down, something needs to happen, and I agree with what you just said. I mean, work with the mayor, work with the budget committee, and try to put things in order so it makes sense.
Well, I would like, I'm sorry, when you're done, Mark, I'd like to have the floor back. Okay, the only thing I would like to point out is that we have a fire chief that got, over the last 5 years, from 2012 to 2017, he got a $20,000 over a 5-year period of time raise. We have a street department assistant superintendent that got over, for just 1 year, he got a $4,000 a year raise. We have our police chief over the last 5 years, since 2012 to now, he got an $18,793 a year raise over a 5-year period. That's how much the raise increased, his salary increased. I'm not saying that they don't deserve these raises. What I'm saying is that there are inequalities compared to some of the other assistants below those positions too that need to be addressed. We as a budget committee realize that the clerks in the city of Portage, on the other hand, some of them only got an 8.8% raise in that same period, a $3,000 a year raise compared to our upper management or our superintendents and some of our assistant superintendents. So that was the reason why we decided to compensate our fire clerks and our police clerks and our other clerks throughout the city with a 3% raise across the board this year, and hold steady on the assistant superintendents and the superintendents. that's something we came up with as a budget committee, and I think it was unanimously voted on by the rest of the council.
I'd just like to say one thing real quick. We can advocate all we want and say a 3% raise, but we don't decide the raises.
Right.
The mayor could give 1% if he wanted to.
That's what I've been saying all
So
along.
we set a maximum, he could give less.
We
So-
can't raise, we can
Yeah.
only lower.
That's what we're doing to make it
And
equalized.
that's why there was discrepancies in here, because the mayors had the ranges in there, and none of us actually knew what the actual salaries were until actually we started getting them in June of this year. And we're trying to correct some of the inequalities that have been given to certain employees, so. That's all I have to say about the subject.
Mr. Cannon,
What-
you asked
Yeah,
me to
was
say
the raises that the mayor submitted baked into the budget before they were changed by the council?
No, we passed our budget because he didn't have a salary ordinance. He handed it to us a day before our council meeting.
Okay.
A month later.
And can the utilities, I don't know if this is legal or who, but can utilities pay the city back for the $5,000 that, because I'm sure that's on the budget, but an additional 45,000, but and the 35,000 and the 10,000, the 45,000 be reimbursed to the city from the utilities for the pay increase? Not asking for another check, just asking if the utility can
Yes.
reimburse the city for the 45,000.
No, that is what you gotta do.
I'd like our attorney to answer that question now.
Well,
Members of the.
I
I
love-
will as soon
I-
as I'm able to, I'm gonna have to look at
Yeah.
it. My initial knee-jerk reaction is yes,
Somehow.
but I'd like to, I'd like to confirm that with some research.
Sure.
Since it is an $18 million organization, all of a sudden, it's got all kinds of money.
It's always.
Since we just soaked,
That amount of money.
well, it's gonna get a lot more. Soaking churches and
Got a lot of work to do.
nonprofits, so, and businesses.
And Chris, I would like to sit down and go over, not just, I know you just picked a few out of here to show the discrepancies. I'd like to sit down with you and go over, get the whole city, as far as the non-bargaining units, wages,
And I also like.
before we
to put
meet,
it on
but
that
the budget
email
committee
thread.
meets.
I didn't get that email today. I got, somehow left off that email today, so.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second? All those in, second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you.